You mentioned the rider, I think Representative Margot referred to it for children whose parents are in combat. Is that correct?
Yes. There's two provisions. They're either in combat or they move into the state because of BRAC.
Okay. And I thought I heard you say that this had been recommended to be something to be looked at over several interim studies. Is that correct?
No. No. The looked over by several interim studies was increasing the weights for combat and bilingual in general.
Okay. So the component about BRAC and combat parents, that's recently been recommended? It just came into
we tried to do it for several sessions. It was incorporated into House Bill 3646 last year, last biennium, I mean, but because of the rules under which it could be incorporated, it had to be incorporated in at zero cost. So in order to do that, we said it would be funded out of money available within the foundation school program. Well, the problem was there was no excess. This was the one session where there was no excess money available within the foundation school program.
Okay, and also to that point, in case there was available money, I don't know, we'll be meeting with the comptroller tomorrow. I'm not saying anything, but the point being, the mention on El Paso, do you have any idea about statewide impact on this or not? Is that part of your area?
The language that's within the code right now limits it to $9.9 million per year. When we did the estimates, I don't have the latest numbers from the Army, but when we had what were the latest numbers 2 years ago, our estimate was it was going to be about $9.8 million, and we put the $9.9 million cap just to make sure that for certification of the appropriations bill, it wouldn't go over that.
So you mentioned Army. That's not against across all service disciplines.
Well, no, it's all service, but I mean, it was because of who we got the information. We got it from Fort Bliss. Okay.
And also, how far back have you said that the interim studies about increasing the weights for compensatory ed? How far back has that gone that you believe that nothing's been done?
Well, when we
just a question.
I'll try to be real brief about it, and I'll give you the longer answer later on if you want. But as some of these folks have heard me say before, when we adopted the weights, the original studies that we did for adopting the weights said that both of those weights were supposed to be at 0.4 or 40% more than the regular program. And I'll tell you the whole story why, but I literally wrote the introduced versions of both bills, House and Senate side, and not from my doing, they got cut back to 30% or 0.3 for comp ed and 0.2 for bilingual on the Senate side and 0.2 and 0.1 on the House side, and the House prevailed in conference committee. So we underfunded them by half in the case of comp ed and 3/4 in the case of bilingual ed at the time they were adopted, and I can walk you through all of the studies where we've shown that yes, the costs are still there, and yes, we're still underfunded.
I don't think they want you to do that today, but
right.
If you go back to the first, if you go back to the furthest date that originally began that we've been underfunded, that's what I want to know.
Well, that would be 1984.
Okay, 84. And one more question. With regards to, what was I going to ask you? I can't even remember now.
I'll fill in for you.
No.
We had the regular program allotment.
No, I know you gave us a whole list. No, with regards, you said you were the author, one of the authors of the Rainy Day Fund?
I was co-author. The primary author was Stan Schlueter.
Okay, and so at the time that was brought forth, in the legislative intent or constitutional amendment language for that, do you believe right now that our situation is apropos for tapping into that fund?
Well, I'm always intrigued by the people who argue that we ought to look at original intent, for example, with respect to constitutional issues, and then when they don't like what the original intent was, they say let's ignore what the original intent was. The original intent of the Rainy Day Fund was to deal precisely with the circumstance we are in right now. And the reason I was a conferee on it and the reason why I drafted the substitute language on the House floor for it was because my job was to make sure that we used it to guarantee that public education would not be cut. The demand for government services is countercyclical to the economy. When the revenue for the state goes down, that's precisely when the demand for what the state does goes up. Okay? And so the idea behind the Rainy Day Fund, it was the 7 years of lean and 7 years of fat from the Bible. We're going to put money away in the storerooms, and when the 7 years of lean arrive, we're going to take that money out of the storerooms so that nobody starves. Okay? Well, schools are going to be starving right now, and the purpose of the Rainy Day Fund was specifically to deal not with disasters, not with 2 years ago when they tried to spend it on Hurricane Ike, we were told you can't spend it on Hurricane Ike because you need to save it for the downturn in the economy. Now that we've got the downturn in the economy, you're being told you can't spend it for that because you need to save it for disasters. There's something that doesn't work in that. It was intended specifically to make sure we would not make cuts to public education, and I believe that you have revenue to draw on. One thing I'd like to correct in terms of something that somebody said to Representative Zerwas when he was asked, when he was talking about the question of paying back the deferral, somebody made the statement that when it was done in 2003, the deferral was paid back in 2005. It was not. It was paid back in 2007. And in fact, every time we've done the deferral, it's been not the next biennium, but the biennium after that when we've paid it back. So I would argue, no, you don't need to be saving the money in the rainy day fund for that right now. You should be spending it for the original purpose for which it was intended, which is to make sure that we don't make cuts in public education.
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Otto.
Thank you. One quick question, though. It was not completely paid back until 2007. Wasn't part of it paid back in 2005? Because we had already turned the corner with revenues.
The way you pay it back is you move the date forward again, and you didn't move the date forward and you didn't move the date forward again until 2007.
Okay, but it is important to put that tool back in your tool chest. Would you not agree?
If you don't have it, the next time you have a downturn. Yeah. I had the misfortune of being the chair for budget for education during the downturn in 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, which was not a fun time. That's when we started using a whole lot of those particular tools. And yeah, you desperately need them. The rainy day fund is good, but it's not necessary. As this year more than any has shown, it's not necessarily sufficient, and so you need other tools in your toolbox.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one quick question. One follow on to that military BRAC coverage. Isn't that only for students who move in during the school year?
It's only a 1 year. For the students who move in, it's
in
for
the middle
year,
of the school year, right?
Well, it's for students who move in for the year in which they move in, whatever year that is. It's just a one school year thing, and we can talk about the reasons why, but it has to do with when you're moving a big number of kids in from out of state and frequently from overseas education systems. You've got a lot of absorption stuff, getting kids up to speed on what the Texas curriculum is and so on that you have to do.
Dr. Zerwa.
I'm sorry, I was watching.